Hello, everyone. My name is Arjun. Welcome to the channel. This is my first video, so I'm actually really excited. Um, and basically, also an introduction to the channel and really just my first video. Raw, raw, me speaking raw, sorry. Let's get back. All right, there we go. This channel is meant for me to sort of just share myself to the world and really just share the stuff going on in my life, the things I have learned, my experiences, and just putting it out there. Something I can, take record of as I go on this journey. And, if anyone finds any insight in what I may share, who's maybe going through something similar to what I'm going through, I think these videos can help you a lot in that way. I am a filmmaker. I uh, I enjoy making films. I direct. I write. You've probably noticed some of my works on my YouTube channel. If you haven't, feel free to go check that out after the video. And yeah, today I am going to be talking about feeling lost. Now, this was something I've been wanting to do for a while, this channel, as well as talking about this. This is something I feel a lot of people, not only myself, but a lot of people I know are going through the sense of feeling lost. Where do we go? What's my next step? And yeah, I think most people I know have been at that point in their life at least once, feeling lost, like unsure where to go, where their career is gonna go. Do I go to university? What do I study in university? I'm young. That's the biggest one I think a lot of people came across. I think a lot of us are trying to figure out what we want to do for our careers. Some people have it figured out. Some people already have their businesses going. Some already uh, are pursuing their jobs after university. Some, including myself, I know what I want to do. I want to make films and all that. But sometimes I don't want to say stumble, but sometimes I I end up thinking, and I'm like, is that it? Is like, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And no matter what happens, no matter how hard I try to, divert paths or something, or even when I sit and reflect, I it's always film that comes back to me. It's always been something that always comes back to me. So the big thing I really want to talk about feeling lost is like, yeah, like, that's how people often feel when they're lost. They're unsure about their career, they're scared, they overthink, they're anxious, and that often leads to, they become very secluded, they overthink, they please others too much, and they constantly distract themselves. For me, I would distract myself, I would binge eat, I would do all sorts of things. And it always, I you don't like, it's not the best feeling in the world, but it's important. Now I know what you're thinking, like, Arjun, how can you say it's important? Feeling lost feels like shit. You you feel depressed, you feel constant anxiety, you're overthinking, your self-worth is like diminished. You think of yourself as like a piece of nothing. And you don't know what to do. Like, it's terrifying. It is actually terrifying. Like, what am I going to do now? What's my next step? And that's what I want to talk about because that's something I've been going through a lot recently. And usually, what helps me get through this is letting it play out. Not letting it have control over me, but letting it play out. I still have control in it. I process what's happening. I believe being lost is so important because that's the only way you find yourself. That's the way you find your path back to yourself. When when I've felt lost, for me, it was always okay, you need to take a step back. You're not meant to keep going forward just in this moment. You're not meant to keep charging through. You need to take a second. You need to figure out what are your values, What do you enjoy? What matters to you? And what's important to you? You need to know these things. And that was my experience with being lost. And I'll share my experience in more detail, really, of when I felt lost the first time. It was right after high school. I chose to take a gap year, and I had this list of things to do. I wanted to work. I wanted to make money. I wanted to compete in martial arts tournaments. I was doing so well in martial arts for about a year. It was I joined during COVID. So what happened was everything was closed except my martial arts gym. So I was training there 5 times a week, and I was just having a blast. I was enjoying it, and while I didn't know what to do for school, I was like, okay, well, you know what? I'd love to compete in something like that just for fun and stuff. I didn't know if I would ever take it professionally or long term. It's just, why not have that experience? Then I ended up injuring my knee. And when I injured my knee, like, oh my God, it diverted everything. My whole plans went to shambles. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't stand for longer than 2 hours without my knee hurting. Even if I went to parties, like 2 hours in, I'd be like, shit, I'm like, I either need to sit down or I'm just going to go home because it sucked. I'm like, it was not fun. And that knee injury happened in September, right after the summer of high school. So I was in this state of like, oh, I just got off this vacation. I'm ready to grind. I'm ready to work hard. And then, boom, I'm not able to go on vacation anymore, nor am I able to work and grind hard in the ways I wanted to. So I ended up having to take that step back. And, like, I was bedbound for so many months and I was just like miserable. I was, my self worth, like, just, disintegrated. My self worth disintegrated. I was losing weight at the time, and then I gained a lot of weight back because you're not moving much. You're bedbound. You're not really in control of what you're doing. So it really sucked, and at that time. And I remember around January, I uh, I started um, feeling suicidal. I started feeling very um, down, very, very lost. As in, I felt aimless. I was applying to universities, but like it didn't matter to me at that point. I was like, I was applying to a university for film and as backup psychology to some other schools. And I just kept thinking of what other people kept telling me. Oh, why would you go to school for film? What are you going to do? I'm like, what do I do now? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I can't go work on a set. I'm like, I don't know what to do. It was terrifying. Absolutely. It was so, so terrifying that I just did not know what to do. I was so crumbled up. I was overthinking. I was like, okay, people are telling me do this, people are telling me do that. Which one do I listen to? I don't know. I don't know. And that's a whole nother thing to talk about for another time. But I I wasn't sure what to do. I was, again, like I said, lost. And I texted a friend, a good friend, and if anyone is, going through anything like that, thinking of any of those thoughts, please, I beg you, reach out to someone, reach out to a friend, or reach out to hotlines, uh, the the helplines, suicide prevention lines. Please reach out to them. Don't feel like you have to do this alone. You don't, because when I reached out to someone, it helped me a lot. Even if it was a few words, it was enough. And they told me wait out for 6 months. They're like, don't worry about anything for 6 months. And I was like, oh, I'm like, really? I'm like, I don't know, man. And he's like, nope. He's like, wait 6 months. He's like, you're not doing it. You're not. And I'm like, okay. He's like, when you wait 6 months, you're gonna like think, you're gonna laugh at this moment. You're gonna be like, why did I even think of that? So I took his input. And for those 6 months, now because I hit rock bottom, I'm like, all right, now, like, okay, I'm not gonna do that. So now what? I'm like, okay, well, let's make these 6 months worth it. I'm just gonna have fun, I guess. So, and fun, not distracting. So I do also want to bring up a quick difference there, which I've noticed that I do is when I'm in this moment of being lost, I often distract myself. Now, I'm not saying, you are distracting yourself if you're doing these things. It was just for me, I was doing an over amount, such as I was playing video games all day, morning to evening. I was, um, I was watching so much YouTube, Instagram Reels, TikToks, cheap dopamine hits all around and stuff. And it made it worse. And again, like I said, if you do any of those things and you don't feel like it hinders your life, that's okay. For me, it was hindering me at that time. I still watch YouTube. I play video games a little bit. I don't use Instagram anymore. Not as much. And especially my other social media stuff because it's not worth it for me. uh, so anyways, those 6 months, life started going up, and I was like, I wasn't even paying attention to it. I just sort of went with the flow, and because I couldn't do anything with my knee, I ended up. I also didn't know what was the knee injury. Our appointment was in April to see what was our to see like what had happened from September to April. I had no idea what was wrong with my knee. All I knew was I couldn't stand for more than 2 hours. So I was just like, okay, what can I do now? And I wanted to screenwrite. That's been my passion, my dream. So I started learning a lot more about writing. I was watching videos about people breaking down movies, my favorite movies, all that. I was rewatching my favorite movies. I was playing video games. I was reconnecting with my hobbies when I was a little younger, like Lego. Lego had introduced their what do you call it, the adult series around that time. So I started buying more of those than the other sets I used to get because I had grown out of a lot of the play sets and stuff. I don't buy as many of those for obvious reasons, but I started collecting the adult sets and stuff, especially the Batman ones. That's for another video though. Sorry, I'm sorry if I sidetrack a little bit. It's just exciting. I love sharing stuff like this. But anyways, back to it. I do have just like some lines jotted down just so I knew exactly where I was like, going through so I don't lose track. Um so yeah, and I mean when you are feeling lost and what I saw in that moment was it gave me an opportunity to reconnect with who I was. And it's very important that when you are feeling lost that you allow those insecurities to come up. Don't people often do so like we believe in I believe in energy frequency and if someone's watching this I may assume they might believe in the same thing where when you're in a higher frequency you receive accordingly, you pursue things accordingly. It changes things out. You live in a positive frequency, positive things happen. Live in a negative frequency, negative things happen. And but what people often mistake is, okay, I have an insecurity coming up, shove that down. Shove that down into a garbage can. And you keep doing that with every insecurity. You're not good enough. You look ugly, this, that, pop, pop, pop. And if you never confront them, if you never identify the insecurity or whatever it is, it'll it'll still affect you. It will. You can either shove it in the trash can and let it be trash, or you can put it in your toolbox and use it as wisdom. Okay, I felt like for example, I was always, very self-conscious of my body. But there was a time in my life where eventually I stopped thinking about that. I stopped worrying about that. I'm like, I'm a funny guy. I'm like, I understand I have, I need to lose some weight and all that, but I'm a fun guy. I'm nice. I'm kind to people. I'm smart. I'm like, I have other redeeming qualities. And I made a lot of friends. When I moved to back to Canada from India, I was terrified. I'm like, oh my God, I'm a pretty big guy. I had lost some pounds right before coming. I was on some diets and all that to lose the weight quickly. But I was like scared. I'm like, oh my God, what if I show up here and people are just, ripping into me? People are just making fun of me constantly. And people didn't. They sort of, I started talking to people and all that. So there was even a time then, a small time where I felt lost then, where I was able to tackle that insecurity of, okay, Arjun, you're not confident in your body. And I would hide this by doing certain things. Maybe I'm wearing multiple layers of clothes, or I wouldn't, one thing I always did when I was younger was I never looked at myself in the mirror. And once I see photos of myself, I was like, shit. I would get angry at myself and I would be like, oh, I'm like, you look so disgusting. And I'm like, And but what I never like even accepted was my friends don't see me like that. Like I'm like okay, I'm like you see the aspect that like you're in a group photo and you look the way you look, but it's like okay, but there's people around you and stuff. There's got to be something else to you that's also good, right? And it's like that doesn't mean that that's not a problem. That means you should lose weight and stuff. And it's like okay, I'm like now I know where to go from here, how to act. And it's not now that like I'm gonna go out and be like, oh yeah, I'm super jacked, I'm super ripped. I mean, hey, you can think of that in the inside. You can think of that as the image of, okay, that's who I'm working towards to. But, starting off, it's like, okay, taking a step by step by step. And you don't notice that until you've identified that insecurity. That's not when you can start the work. So feeling lost isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a really good thing. And right now, if you are feeling lost, this is the time for you to see what really matters in life. Because often when we feel lost in life, it's we often don't have a lot weighing on our shoulders. You may not be in school right now. Maybe you just graduated university, and maybe you were enjoying the program you were in, studying that for the first 2 years, but then you lost interest, and now you're just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to study this, whatever I'm studying. And, maybe you're not able to apply for those jobs. Maybe something else caught your eye. Maybe you're good at something else. Maybe you like doing art. Maybe you like doing graphic design. Whatever it may be, you sort of think of it like that and you're like, wow, like, okay, maybe that's what I need to focus on. Or maybe there was something like what I always think about these times when you feel lost is usually the time to prepare yourself for what comes next. And for example, before India, it was before moving back to Canada for me, my insecurity was maybe oh, my body defines is the only thing that defines me. And I was like, okay, I need to move on beyond that. I'm like, I'm more than my body. I am my soul. And this is something I've been working on for a long time. Sometimes I forget about it. Sometimes someone has to remind me, like, hey, like, you're not just your body, you're your soul. And I've it's been an up and down game with this weight thing and stuff, right? So when I was feeling so when I discovered that, I sort of was going through life, and you know I may have maxed out that aspect. I may have gone rid of that insecurity, like, oh, all my friends love me, it's going great, I'm all right, I'm good. But what ended up happening was maybe I wasn't taking care of my health still. Sure, it wasn't bothering me anymore that, okay, people like, I may not be the most fit guy in the room. I know I have to lose some pounds, but then eventually got to a point where I wasn't even trying to lose the pounds. I was um, I was eating a lot. I was eating a lot of junk food. I wasn't exercising as much. So eventually, when that point was coming, again, I hit a stop. Again, I felt lost. And I'm like, now why am I feeling lost? And this was like 2 years between these lost phases. And the second phase I'm talking about is after high school. The first phase was before 10th grade. So there was about 3 years there where I sort of, figured out a lot of other things, but there were certain things which were new to me, which started coming up, and that started testing out new insecurities, such as maybe my self worth. Like, oh man, like I don't have a girlfriend. What am I gonna do and stuff? Career stuff. Okay, what do people like to talk about here? What do I need to do to fit in? And I kept myself very private when I was meeting new people in school, and they liked me. We kicked it off, but as time went on, I started becoming more myself. I started sharing more of my interests. Maybe like at the time I loved comic books, I loved movies, obviously, and some of those people did not share those same interests. Once I started talking about them, they're like, seriously, dude, like you're that obsessed with that stuff? Like, come on, man, like we don't really want to talk about that stuff and all. And that always, that sucked. That hurt me. I was now like, okay, I'm like, so they are in love with the Arjun that wasn't into that stuff, the one that the mask I had put on before that. So I would go back to that. And then I would do that. I would do that. I would living up to that mask. I stopped watching I stopped my obsession with movies. I, wasn't as obsessed with, or I was more obsessed with movies, but only movies other people would like. Or I stopped collecting Legos, or I stopped talking about comic books. I really suppressed my fun and nerdy side. And when high school finished, it was like, oh, you need to figure this stuff out. You have so many insecurities right now because of certain things that happened these last few years. So I was like, okay, I'm like, now I need to see what's going on here, you know. And this was during high school, and I mean, it's normal to happen in high school. So I had to sit back and like look into that, and that's what that year really did for me, the knee injury. And that's how I saw that knee injury as a blessing, because I didn't think of it as, oh, you know, someone put a curse on me, they didn't want me to succeed. No, no, no. If it wasn't for that injury, I wouldn't have discovered myself. I wouldn't have pursued screenwriting full time as I did. I wouldn't have learned as much about screenwriting if it wasn't for that year. And by the time I was sort of getting out of that hole, I had gone into university for psychology. I got rejected for film, and I ended up traveling to India. And over there, I reconnected even more to myself because I met with a lot of my old school friends that I had. You know, they're my best friends. They're still my best friends to this day. We're still good friends, and I hadn't seen them since I had moved back to Canada. So seeing them also was a very good way for me to reconnect. I was finally myself after so long. And I was like, wow. And like I remember I cried like the first week I was there, like one of the days, because after hanging out with my friends, I was like, this is who I am. This is who I'm meant to be. You know, talking about, you know, the comics, the games, being myself, laughing as I want, doing what I want. And yeah, I mean, it's made me a little emotional because I remember that time so well, so vividly. But I wouldn't have realized that if it wasn't for that moment, I was lost. So when I was there in India, I was still getting out of that lost phase. I was sort of finding my footing, and I sort of started believing more into spirituality. That's when I got really into it, and I sort of started taking my foot towards it, as in, okay, now let's sort of embrace this. Let's study this more. Let's discover this stuff more. And my mom really guided me through a lot of that. She didn't push it on me, but she like told me like, hey, if you want to try it. And for me, I just got that gut feeling like, oh, I gotta try it. And that's what really made me realize like how there's nothing, like everything that happens for a reason. Me getting rejected from film school the first year, getting into psychology, I felt like that was a test. It was like to see, are you going to really give up on your dream that easily, or are you going to go into psychology and stuff? I didn't know what to do. I was so confused. And I you know, I talked to my friends, my parents, you know, people who I trusted. I wouldn't say talk to everyone about decisions and all that, but I talked to them. I'm like, I don't know, psychology or film. I'm like, see, if I choose to go with film and stuff, apply to somewhere else for film, I'm gonna have to take another gap year and stuff, right? I don't think psychology's it. And you know, parents were like, do another gap year. They're like, now you know what to do. By then, I had discovered what was wrong with my knee, so actually, I now knew how to work around it, how to make it better, how I can function better as with this injury. And I sort of knew everything to do. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I need another year. I'm like, I don't think I'm ready yet, and stuff. I'm like, I think I need to focus on some other things first. So I decided to take another gap year. And when I took that gap year, it changed it all for me. I lost 55 pounds in 6 months. I was doing keto diet. I was working out 3 times a week. I only focused on my health like 90% of the time, and that includes mental health. And then the other 10% was my like career and stuff. Like, what am I gonna do? I was doing some film courses in meanwhile, and I was just working on all that and doing all that and stuff. Time just flew like that. And it's different because we often talk, you've probably heard of it. You know, I'll probably talk about later on about how sometimes we feel like we're going in like an autopilot mode or a flow. And it's two very different things. It's like they sound the same, but they're two very different things. Autopilot is like you're scrolling on reels for an hour and a half long. For an hour and a half. That's autopilot. A flow is aligned action, inspired action, however you may like to say it. I think both of those are a good definition of how to be in a flow. So that's like, okay, I love writing. So for me, I'm going to sit on my computer, I'm going to screenwrite. And for what may feel like an hour was actually 5 hours. I was screenwriting from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. And I was like, holy shit. I'm like, I wrote a big outline, or maybe I wrote 6 pages. Sometimes I may have only written 1 page and stuff, right? But I checked the time. I'm like, was I on 1 page for 6 hours? I'm like, no way. But I was. While auto, and then like, some people are probably thinking like, oh, you're just grinding, you're focused in the work. I'm like, well, when I try to read a textbook, if for something, again, I'm not saying like sometimes if I'm really focused in what I'm doing and, if it's something of interest and I'm reading the textbook, I could maybe read the chapter, let's say it's 30 pages long. I could probably read that chapter in maybe 45 minutes to really fully cement it, maybe 40 minutes. But if it's something I'm not interested in, oh my God, I'm on that chapter for like an hour and a half, something like that. Time is going so slow. Hour and a half feels like 4 hours. I'm like, shit. So that's really like, what the flow is and stuff. It's sort of like, you're kind of doing things as you would feel inspired to do. Like, okay, the Arjun I want to become, I want to do that. And, you sort of take that step and you start doing that. So when you're feeling lost, that's really, how to find yourself is really doing that, like focusing on what you need to do. Now, after my second gap year, after focusing on all that, I got into film school. I went to film and I got into a different film program, and I just worked hard. Like, it didn't even feel like I was working hard. It just felt like a flow. I was sorry about that. My recording stopped and I was like, oh man. So the big thing I was really tackling about there. So yeah, I ended up pursuing film, at school, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, I was doing well in it, um, and I was just focused on the angle. I mean, I was working hard, but it didn't even feel like I was working hard because it was just a flow. I was in my element. That's what I enjoyed. That's what I was good at, and I just kept going, going, going. However, eventually I started getting cold feet. I was feeling a bit confused. I was almost getting into that lost point because I was like, oh, I'm like, it's film. I'm like, it is a pretty, hit or miss industry when it comes to making money. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should go do something else. Maybe I'll do, I'll study real estate or something like that. And I get back into the film, and then second year starts, and I'm like, oh no, I'm enjoying this. It's actually fun. I'm really liking it. This is, again, I'm enjoying it. And I feel like I'm good at it. I'm like, okay. And then again, I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And then when I was feeling lost again, I was on nicotine and stuff. I was on nicotine pouches, the lip ones, and I wanted to quit them. And I was doing this internship. I was doing something related to marketing. I was a copywriter, and I was trying to distract myself to so many things. I was trying to make myself feel busy, so I feel busy and stuff. But then what ended up happening? Sorry, I was getting a phone call. But then what ended up happening was I started doing quantum meditation. In case if you haven't heard of that before, I highly recommend you check that out because that changed me. Once I started doing quantum meditation, my my life just sort of started changing. It just started changing, and um, I started realizing, okay, what is it that I really want? And whenever I feel lost, I often resort to meditation, things like that. And recently, I just finished getting my diploma in film, and while I'm really happy about getting my diploma, I was gonna do the bachelor's, but I felt something told me like that's not the right call. And then I was like, okay, you know what? Now I'll study psychology. Now I'll do that. Now I'll do this, and I'll get a good job. I was thinking all that, and again, it was sort of resorting to the thinking of when I had injured my knee, of where I had this list of things to do, and I was sort of thinking of doing stuff in the mindset of what's going to help me look good, what is going to be acceptable for people to hear. So eventually I decided not to continue with doing psychology, and I ended up taking the step back. And this was only a few weeks ago, and I was lost as anything. I'm like, fuck, where do I go? I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like genuinely, I didn't know what to do and stuff. And even now, it's like I was like, oh my god, like where do I go? Where do I go? What's okay? What's my plan for next year now? I don't. I was lost again. But this time I knew what to do. I let it play out. I let my insecurities play out. I let the fear come. I let it all come because once those came, deeper things came. Deeper things came. Right when I right when I withdrew, first thing that came up, oh shit, what am I going to do for career? Now that doesn't even matter to me cuz deeper things came up. Things that I had uh, I had gained these last few years after doing film, insecurities that I may have had when I was a kid, but were really getting poked at during these last few years. So I allowed it to play out, and once I did, I finally realized like I can't, like I got to, like, align myself, inspired action, divine orchestration. You got to focus on what you need to do in front of you. Wake up every day. Would the highest version of you create a list of the things you're going to do today? Is the highest version of you going to prioritize their health over their career? Is the highest version of you going to be more focused on your mental health than materialistic things? Is he going to focus on growing yourself, your business, or buying the most expensive things? And I'm not saying you shouldn't buy expensive things and all. I'm just talking about priorities and stuff, right? Like, what would the version of you do? And for me, it was like, okay, what does my version want to do? Who am I? And I'm like, all right, mine. It's always been film. Film always comes back to me. If you haven't, please watch my films on the channel. Those are some stuff I've worked on, and I've got a bigger film even coming out soon. And I want you to think of stuff like that. What would you do with that and stuff? Like, what would be your aspired action? What would what would you do if you knew it all turned out well? What would you do right now? Like, it's all gonna play out as you hope. You know what you want in here. How is it gonna play out? What are you gonna do right now that gets you to that goal? Don't worry about, what your career is going to be like in 10 years and stuff. Focus on what you need to do right now if you're feeling lost. What, you need to make some money. Okay, you can't find something big long term and stuff like you really want. Like, a lot of people are doing e-commerce, drop shipping, all that. And maybe you want to do that, but it's like, oh, but it's too time consuming. I need to learn so much, but I need some money right now. I want to do something else. So go back, take a step back, meditate on it, sit on it, write it out, and see what would that version of myself do right now. And perhaps he's gonna say, you know what? I'm gonna just do the job I need to do now, whatever job it is, make some money. While I'm doing that, I'm gonna work on my e-commerce thing, work on my drop shipping, work on my passion, whatever it is, and not worry about a single thing. Because at the end of the day, you are exactly where you need to be. There's a quote I love, and I'm going to put the guy who says it over here. And the quote is, when you're lost in the woods, look around you. All the trees are there exactly where they're meant to be, and so are you. If you feel lost, remember, it is only to find yourself to get out of it. Thank you guys. That's about it for today's video. I could keep talking more about this, but I think this is enough for a first video. And I hope you guys enjoy it. And I hope you guys get some insight. Again, I'm not a psychologist or a life coach or anything like that. I'm 22 years old. I'm simply doing this for, when I speak out like this, I end up learning more about myself. And, if that helps anyone out there, I think I did a great job. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you do, like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to check out my films if you're interested. And yeah, take care, everyone.